What you're about to see is not something that can be explained easily, because the truth is that most of these moments weren't even supposed to be captured at all. They happened when people were least expecting it. Inside their homes, in quiet hallways, late at night in places where nothing out of the ordinary should have been happening. Yet somehow, the cameras picked it up. The strange movements, the sudden shadows, and even voices that no one could count for. At first, the people who experienced it thought it was just a trick of the light, maybe even a glitch in the recording. But the more they played it back, the more they realized it wasn't just some random error. One of the most chilling cases comes from a small apartment in Texas, where a man had set up security cameras after his neighbors complained about noises coming from his unit late at night, even when he was at work. The footage showed objects moving on their own, slow at first, like someone gently nudging them, and then violently, as if something unseen wanted to make its presence impossible to ignore. He later reported waking up with deep scratches on his arms. Even though he lived alone, and the doctors couldn't explain how they had appeared overnight. Another disturbing recording took place in an old school that had been abandoned for over a decade. Local teens would sneak in to film videos for fun, but when one group reviewed their footage, they noticed a figure standing at the end of the hallway. At first it looked like a shadow, but as the camera zoomed in, it became clear it was something else entirely. The outline was there, but the face wasn't human. It was blank, featureless, and it seemed to tilt its head as if it knew it was being watched. The group swore they heard footsteps following them as they ran out, but when police were called to investigate, not a single footprint could be found inside the building. And it's not just old places or abandoned buildings where these things happen. Even in modern homes, in brand new apartments, there are moments that defy explanation. Families have reported lights flickering in patterns, whispers caught on baby monitors, and doors slamming shut when no windows were open. Some experts claim it's energy left behind. Others say it's all psychological. But then, how do you explain the recordings? How do you explain when multiple people, in different locations, thousands of miles apart, report the exact same chilling experiences at the exact same time? Some of the most unsettling cases come from people who weren't even looking for anything unusual. They were just living their everyday lives, unaware that their cameras would end up recording moments that would later keep them awake at night. Like the family in Ohio who bought a simple indoor camera to keep an eye on their dog while they were at work. At first, everything seemed normal. The dog would wander from room to room, sometimes bark at the window, sometimes sleep on the couch. But then, something strange started happening. Around 3:15 a.m. every night, the dog would sit in the middle of the living room, completely still, staring at a dark corner. The camera captured him growling at nothing, his fur standing on end, until suddenly he bolted out of the room. What's worse is that on one of the recordings, right after the dog runs away, a faint whisper can be heard, a whisper that clearly says his name. But that's not even the most disturbing part. The owner later admitted that when she tried to play the clip again, the file had been corrupted. Every other recording was intact, except for that one. The only reason we know what was on it is because she had already shown it to her neighbor before it mysteriously disappeared from the device. Then there's the case of the man from Arizona who worked as a night shift security guard. He had been assigned to an empty warehouse that was scheduled for demolition, and he thought it would be an easy job. Just a few weeks of walking the halls, checking doors, logging times, and then getting paid. But his report started getting stranger with each shift. He began writing down that he was hearing heavy footsteps on the second floor, even though the entire area had already been cleared out and locked. The footage from his body cam later revealed something that still makes people uneasy today. As he walked to the main hallway, his flashlight passed over what looked like a shadow figure, tall, unmoving, almost blending into the wall. But when he turned back with the light, it was gone. Some people claim it was a trick of the light. Others point out that his breathing quickened on the recording right after the encounter, as if he saw something he didn't want to believe. And while skeptics often argue that all of these stories are nothing more than exaggerated tales or glitches in technology, it's hard to ignore how often they happen across different states, Different families, different lives, yet the same patterns emerge. People waking up at exactly 3 a.m., the sound of knocking that always comes in threes, electronics turning on by themselves, children speaking to people who aren't there. When these events are isolated, maybe you can brush them off, but when they keep piling up, when the same details keep repeating themselves in recordings from all over the country, it becomes harder to deny. The truth is, the paranormal doesn't always reveal itself with dramatic moments. Sometimes it's subtle. A shadow crossing behind you in a mirror when you're alone, a voice that says your name when no one is home, or a door that unlocks by itself after you know for sure you locked it. These are the kind of experiences that make people start recording, because they need proof of themselves that they're not imagining it. And when the cameras do catch something, that's when the real questions begin. One of the most terrifying stories comes from a college dorm in Pennsylvania. A group of students have been experiencing strange activity for weeks. Missing objects, lights flickering, and sudden cold spots in the hallways. At first, they laughed it off, thinking maybe it was just bad wiring or pranks. But then one of the students, a girl named Emma, decided to set up her phone to record overnight. The next morning, when she reviewed the footage, she froze. At around 2:47 a.m., the door to her room slowly opened on its own. She was still asleep, completely unaware. For nearly a full minute, the camera captured what looked like a dark figure standing in the doorway, watching silently, before the door quietly closed again. The most disturbing part is that when she checked with campus security, the building's entry system showed no one had entered or exited the floor that night. Another chilling case took place in a suburban neighborhood in Florida. A family had recently moved into a newly built house. Everything brand new, nothing old or historic about it. Yet within days of living there, they began noticing something wasn't right. The youngest child, barely 4 years old, would point to the corner of his room and say, "The man is back." At first, the parents dismissed it as an imaginary friend. But one night, while checking the baby monitor, they saw it. A tall, shadowy figure moved across the room, pausing right beside the child's bed before fading away. The parents rushed upstairs, but of course, the room was empty. What scared them the most wasn't just the recording itself, but the fact that the child kept describing the same man, down to the exact detail of his clothes, night after night. Then there's the viral case of a hotel in Nevada. Guests have been complaining about odd noises, knocking, voices in halls, doors slamming in the middle of the night. To settle the rumors, the hotel management decided to release a clip from their security footage. In the video, a staff member is called to check a room after multiple complaints of screams coming from inside. But when he tries to open the door, the key card doesn't work. Seconds later, the handle begins to rattle violently from the inside, as if someone is desperately trying to get out. The staff member backs away, clearly shaken, and moments later, the door slowly opens on its own. He shines a flashlight inside, but the room is completely empty. The bed is made, the bathroom light is off, and there's not a single guest registered to that room. The footage went viral not because of what people saw, but because of what they heard. As the staff member leaves, a faint voice whispers his name. And it isn't just private homes or old buildings. Public places are filled with these encounters too. Subway stations in New York, parking garages in Los Angeles, even libraries where surveillance cameras capture strange activity after hours. One particularly disturbing video shows a library chair sliding across the floor in the dead of night. At first, it seems like a draft or maybe a mechanical issue. But then, the chair turns deliberately, facing the camera, as if something wanted to make sure it was seen. What makes all of these cases so unsettling is not just the recordings themselves, but the fact that so many of them share similar elements. The same time frames, the same figures, the same chilling whispers caught in the background. It's as if something or someone wants to make sure they're noticed. There's one story that has haunted investigators for years, and it comes from a small town in Illinois. A couple had installed outdoor cameras after noticing that their motion sensor lights kept turning on at random hours of the night. For weeks, the camera showed nothing unusual, just raccoons, stray cats, or the occasional passing car. But then, one night at 3:08 a.m., the camera picked up something chilling. A figure appeared at the edge of their yard, standing completely still, just outside the light's reach. At first glance, it looked like a man, but the longer you watched, the more wrong it seemed. The figure didn't move. It didn't shift. It just stood there, almost blending into the shadows. Then, after a few minutes, it slowly tilted its head, directly at the camera. The moment it did, the footage cut to static. When the couple checked the system, every single recording from that night had been erased, except for one frame, just one still image, showing the figure closer than before, right by the fence. Another disturbing case happened in a hospital in Michigan. Nurses began complaining that the elevators on one particular floor kept opening and closing by themselves at night, even when no one had called them. Maintenance teams checked the system multiple times, but found nothing wrong. To prove it wasn't just in their heads, the hospital set up security cameras. What they captured still circulates online today. At around 4 a.m., the elevator doors opened to an empty hallway. Seconds later, a shadow moves across the floor, long and distorted, but there's no body attached to it. One nurse swore that right after, she felt someone brush past her shoulder, even though she was alone. Some say it's the spirit of a patient who died in that wing years ago. Others believe it's something darker, something that never belonged to the hospital in the first place. Then there's the haunting case of the family from Colorado. They'd been renting a house in a quiet neighborhood when they started noticing odd patterns. Every night, at the exact same time, their smart speaker would turn on and play static, even though the device wasn't connected to Wi-Fi. Thinking it was a glitch, they unplugged it. But that night, at 3:12 a.m., the static played again, this time from their baby monitor. The parents rushed into their child's room and found him sitting upright, pointing to the corner and whispering, "He's here." The father later revealed that when he picked up the monitor to turn it off, a distorted voice came through the speaker. "Don't move him." He smashed the device the next morning, but to this day, he swears that his son still wakes up at that same hour, staring at the corner. And it's not just in homes or buildings. Strange encounters have been recorded in the middle of nowhere, on highways and forests, even in open fields. In Texas, a truck driver shared dashcam footage of what appeared to be a figure crossing the road late at night. The figure was pale, thin, moving unnaturally fast, almost gliding instead of walking. When the driver pulled over to check, nothing was there. But on the dash cam, you can clearly see the figure stop in the middle of the road and turn its head toward the truck before vanishing into thin air. Patterns like these raise questions that most people aren't ready to ask. Why do so many of these encounters happen at the same hours of the night? Why do people who've never met describe the same faceless figures, the same whispers, the same impossible movements? It doesn't matter where you are, small towns, big cities, brand new houses, or abandoned ruins. These things find a way to show themselves. And the more you try to ignore them, the stronger they seem to get.